All right, welcome everybody. Mr. Buck, thank you for taking this class. Hopefully everything goes well today. I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible here. We haven't changed the learning objective at all. We're going to be working on the wind turbines. You're going to have to do two things. One is collect your control data, and then two is test two different variables. And you're going to have to make your hypothesis before testing your variables. Okay, so success criteria, get your control data. You're going to record it and then report it in the planning document. There is a link to report your data. And if it is a lot different from what you did last time, go back and check and make sure that you have all the controls set the way they're supposed to be set. But you should get a similar number to what you had last class. And that's kind of the point of capturing the control data each class. You're going to submit your group hypothesis 1 and 2 before testing your hypothesis, and then collect data for your two variables. Okay, so if you weren't here for the quiz last class, make sure you send me an email. Let me know what periods you are available to do it. I'll just have you come into my room and I'll put you in the physics dungeon and you can do it in there. But we got to get that made up as quickly as possible. For those of you that took it already, I will be getting those graded today and tomorrow, and I should have them entered in by Saturday, Sunday. Okay. So with your lab, make sure you set up everything the same way you set it up last time. You'll be all the control data is in the data table, which I'm going to show you in a second. So just put everything back the way you had it. And then when you clean up, please make sure that you put everything back the way it was so that it's ready for the next group. So you're going to come up with two variables that you're going to test. And I would say the easiest variables to test, especially when I'm not here, would be the angle of the blades and the number of the blades. So I have a bin up front that has extra blades in it that you can grab blades and put those in. You should try to test numbers of blades should be 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 12 are all the different combinations of blades that you could test. When you get to those higher numbers, it is really difficult to get the angle set right. So the best thing to do is set one blade, put it in, set it to the correct angle, and then use that as the template for the rest of the blades. So I would say that the best thing to do would be for everyone to test those two same variables, as they are very easy to test. Okay. And then so before you actually start testing those variables again, I need you to fill out the group hypothesis and submit that to me. Okay. The control data, again, you're going to get that. And then the wind power, I'm going to show you how to do it, but you're not going to collect it today. I'd rather be there to troubleshoot any things that might go wrong with that. But the way we're going to calculate our efficiency is by knowing what the power of the wind coming to the turbine is. Okay. You're going to test two variables and you should be starting your lab report. And so the hypothesis is a part of that. So getting your two hypotheses done will be a step in the right direction, and then getting cleaned up. Okay. Again, the lab report isn't due until the 13th, but you should be taking steps to get that done as we go through each of these days. Okay. So in your hypothesis, make sure it's in an if, then, because statement. I have the template in the Google Classroom where you click on the wind turbine lab. There is a group hypothesis form in there that you can fill out. But remember, the if, what follows that is the independent variable. For this lab, everybody will have different independent variables, but for today, I'm going to have all of you do the number of the blades and the angle of the blades. Okay. And then the thing that follows the then is the dependent variable. Remember, for everybody in here, the dependent variable will be the power produced by the wind turbine. And then your because statement, and this is something really important, you're going to propose why it's going to do what it's going to do, and you're going to have cited research. Okay, so you're going to Google why is it going to do what it's going to do? So you should look up what's the ideal angle for a wind turbine blade, and then use that as your explanation of why, when you set it to a certain angle, it's going to be the best. Also, with your hypothesis, be specific. Don't just say, if we change the angle of the blades. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. Make sure you're very specific, saying if the angle of the blades increase from such and such to such and such, then the power will do this, and then your because statement. Okay, and then you're going to add your footnote in there. We'll talk about that later. I would say to kind of divide the labor, each person should be responsible for at least one hypothesis. So again, you're going to test 5 different variables minimum, and you have more than that's more than one variable per person in your group, depending on how many in your group. So each person should be responsible for one. Here is an example of what you would do if the angle of the blades is decreased from 25 degrees, which is our control angle, to such and such, then the power generated will increase because the ideal angle for turbine blades is, and then you would give your answer there. And then I referenced it right here. This one here, I'll spend just a little time right now. The variables table is probably the number one most important thing, and it's one of the most confusing things. Your variables table is not for things that are going to change. It's for things that you're going to keep constant. And so when you're testing the angle of the blade, obviously that's going to change. But when you're testing the number of blades, you should keep the angle of the blades constant. And so the variables table is actually for your constants, the things that you're going to keep the same for that independent variable that you're testing. So if I'm testing angle of the blades, the distance to the fan should be constant. And then here I say why it should be constant and precisely how I'm going to keep it constant. Okay, so you need a method that you're going to describe on how you're going to ensure that the distance to the fan does not change. And make sure you're following that. And then you're going to come up with 4 other things. So this one, if you are doing angle of the blades, what else are you going to keep constant? And so the best way to answer that is to look at your control variables, the table for your controls, and identify each one of those things. So I have just one other row right here, but you're going to add rows, and each different thing that you are going to keep constant should be in a row, and then why it needs to be kept constant and precisely how it will be kept constant. And then you would just click on add another row and do your next variable. And again, you should have at least 4 more from the one that I'm giving you right here. Okay. Coming over here, this is the control group data, but again, I have this in the data table that I'm going to show you in a moment, so you have access to this the whole time. Here are some of the variables that you can test. Today, again, I just want you testing angle of blades and number of blades, but I've got boxes of all these other different things. So you can come back and you can look at the presentation. This is in here, and you can try to figure out what else are we going to test. So if you go really quick today and you get your variables done, you should look on and say, okay, well, what are we going to test next? Okay. Speed of fan would be another nice, easy one. So distance to the fan. So there's a lot of easy ones that you can do, and then there are some more in-depth ones. Okay. These are the things that you should basically have at your station, and then this is the way you're going to set up your station. So again, make sure that you are keeping your fan perpendicular to your turbine. Once you get your turbine set up, make sure you're taping it down so it's not moving. We can't tape, unfortunately, the fan down, but you should align it so that it is right at the edge of the table so that you can visually see if it's going to move. And then it's the wind is directly on the hub of so the hub of the fan is directly at the hub of the turbine. Okay. Again, when you collect your data, make sure you change it to power. Several people I've seen have not gone to power. So up here, you click on that box. You can go to one graph because we just want to see the one graph. You're on power. Once you let it run, you can change the time to just go 10 seconds if you like, or you can run it longer. You can see that when I ran it here, there was like no power and then it went up and then it kind of plateaued pretty constant. This I would call pretty constant, even though it's fluctuating a lot. I started collecting and then I turned on the fan and you can see what happened. You can turn on the fan, let it spin for a while and then start collecting and it will just look like this all the way across. Or you can do what I did here and just identify where it's pretty much constant, highlight that right there, go to view statistics, and then you are going to look at the mean. This is the number that you're going to record. Okay, so make sure you are recording the mean, and that mean is for power. This is the way you're going to find the power of the wind. You're going to use this anemometer. I will go over this with you guys when I come back. It gets a little complicated, but we are going to use this to measure the power that is coming from the fan. And then here's your to-do for today. So you should write your hypotheses. Again, you should have two different ones, one for the angle of the blades and one for the number of blades. You should look over the lab report template. You are going to make a copy of that template and then give access to everybody in the lab group. And then you can start adding things in, put your hypothesis in, start writing your controlled variables down, things like that. You'll collect your data on your control group. Again, record it and report it. The planning document has the link for that. Choose your IDs. I already said your two IDs for today will be your number of blades and your angle of the blades. Research and write your hypothesis, and then collect your data on those first two independent variables. Okay, and then here's a link to the group hypothesis. And then I just wanted to show you really quickly. This right here is, again, your data table. You should already have your data for your control from day one, and then day two will go right here, and then day 3, day 4, day 5, and we probably won't get to a day 6. As you fill this in, it'll automatically calculate your average power as you go. Here is your control data, your settings that you need to have. So if you have your data table up, you will have your control data available to you, okay? Then down here, these are where you'll go to your other ones. So this is where we'll do our calculation for the power of the wind. And then, sorry, here is variable 1. So I've already put a data table in. I've already numbered the data table. You need to name it, whatever your variable is. So either your angle of the blades or number of blades. And then again, name that right here as well, and then write in the value. So if you're doing number of blades, you put a 2 here, and then what was your power? You won't know the efficiency yet, so again, for the efficiency, we have to do a calculation. You need to know the power of the wind to get that, but we'll go over that when I get back. So you would just fill this out, and I give you way more lines than you need, but you should do, again, for angle of the blades, I would say you should do at least 8 different angles, and for number of blades, you should have 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 12, and that's all that you can really do. And then I have space for the next one. Again, you can just copy and paste this into your next one, and then here are your 5 variables along the bottom. Okay, so you'll always have your data. You can't lose it. Make sure that everybody has editing access for this so that if somebody in the group's not here, you can still do the lab. The other thing is here is the group hypothesis that you'll fill in. Name of the group members, what variable you're testing, so your independent variable, number of blades, what will you be measuring, power, write your hypothesis, what's the website that you're getting that from, so your reference, and then for this variable, what will your constants be, okay? And what are the values of these constants? And the values will be whatever your control values are, okay? I hope that makes sense. Mr. Buck, I hope it makes sense to you as well, so you can help as they need it. And good luck today, and I will see you next class.